It's me, Egbert once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
And you know what? We never did give the talking points. So do you have any, or do you want me to give the talking points?
Congrats, yes, contribute to God Squad. And before you do, pray that you'll get the money back. Dial 25 God Squad. That's 25 God Squad. Pastor Brad will say a prayer for you.
Well, that's not the talking points. The talking point would be here, and we're going to give this out, and people can use this all day long. I didn't know she was black.
That's fantastic. Well, she did just flip-flop, Brad. I mean, she was the first Indian senator, and now she's just black. I don't know.
Can we talk about this for a minute? I mean,
yeah, let's do it.
Trump showed up yesterday, and I think this was sort of brave of him because he probably knew he was going into hostile territory. He was invited to be, and the story is, supposedly the backstory is, this was an invitation given to him, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, where he was invited to be on a panel with at the National Association of Black Journalists, which is an organization, guess what, for black journalists, okay? So, and the deal was supposedly at the time when he was given the invitation that he had to be in person. They would not accept a Zoom meeting. And that that President Biden was going to be there as well, too. Well, he shows up. This was done yesterday. Obviously, we have a new situation where President Biden is not doing these kind of things anymore for a reason. And he doesn't show up. Or I think he did show up, but he was going to do it on Zoom or pre-recorded or something like that. So the lady from ABC, do you by chance know off the top of your head what her name was?
I don't know. Just we'll call her Angry Black Woman.
Okay. She leads this. This is interesting. You ask questions. You're a reporter. You ask questions. I'll give you an example of the question she gave. This is just vamping off the top of my head. I'm going to ask John a question. John, Is it true that you are a white male who grew up in North County, and even though the fact that now North County is mostly populated by black people, you really have a biased viewpoint of black people, and that you don't really like white people, nor black people, nor Indian people. No, you just don't like people in general. Is it true that you drive a Ford? You know, I mean, get what I'm saying with the question?
Yeah, I get exactly. It's multi-layered,
right.
And it's more about putting your point of view out there than trying to seek information.
Right. So he goes right off the bat. He says some kind of a nasty question or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So then they get to discussing Kamala Harris. And he makes the comment that he knew her not well, but he knew her. But he thought that she was Indian, and she was not. And everybody in the audience go, oh, they groan like. But see, here we go again. Okay, this is what I don't quite understand. Barack Obama's mother was white. His father was black. Okay, how come he's black? Can't he be both? Can't he say I'm a white guy?
No, because I think that, well, first of all, he wants the privilege of being black, and he wants the credit for being a minority. But I think it's, paradoxically, minorities seem to go by the one drop of blood rule. Like if any ancestors are black, then you're part black.
Well, aren't you Indian? Is that what
Well, I'm 1 degree. I'm 1% Senegalese. So yeah, that's why I identify as a black man. And I like them a little bigger below the waist, you know what I mean? Like a big pair of thick thighs.
Listen to you.
I don't know if that's genetic or if that's just growing up in Spanish slave bread.
Okay, but the point being is, and I don't remember this, but I do believe he's correct in that she very much promoted her Indian heritage. And
she did, and there's a number of videos on social media over the last 24 hours of her proclaiming the fact, her cooking with Mindy Kaling, the chick
that's right.
That, used to be of normal size that was on The Office, and then I guess she started doing a cooking show, or I don't know what came first. Mindy Kalish doing a cooking show. Is it Kalish or Kaling? Whatever her name is. Yeah. Anyway, but she was bragging. Kamala was bragging to Mindy Kaling about being an Indian woman, and several times, people would say you're the first Indian senator ever. Now, it's true you can obviously be biracial. But Kamala, for a while, was just the first Indian senator, and now she wants to be black too.
Well, but see, the other interesting thing on that was, and I read this article that talked about that when she became more in prominence, that the Indian median, in other words, not like the American Indian, but the country India, the Indian median really took a liking to her, and they actually they sought out her past, and they went to where her grandfather lived, and they talked to people in the village, and blah 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 blah, and they say now the Indian media sort of disowns her now because she has put on the back burner the fact that she's Indian, and she's put on the front burner that she's black. And once again, I don't understand the whole thing. See, here's what I don't understand. I don't understand the National Association of Black Journalists. I don't understand any of these the organizations, because let's say, I do the Tony Colombo flip test. Once again, a mention of another guy from another radio station on News Talk STL. Tony Colombo used to be on 97.1. He's one of the refugees. All the ex-people from 97.1 went across the street. Okay, he would do this thing called the flip test all the time, and I liked it. And to the point where if I started the National Association of White Journalists, people go, oh my God, that's racially prejudiced. You're white guys. Well, how can they be black journalists? How can they be black senators? How can they be the Congressional Black Caucus? If there was a Congressional White Caucus, they would be, oh my God, it's all the guys from the South.
Because, Brad, black people have been historically disadvantaged, and it's important for them to have their own spaces that are not contaminated by white privilege, like Brad Hildebrand.
But
I think black people should be, and we know the real reason for this, Brad, is because they can get together and they can complain about white people and they can complain about racism, and then unified, they can make demands for diversity. Hey, you need to hire more people that are unqualified, that can't write their way out of a paper bag. Hire more people, you corporations. Like, that's why they exist.
Well, but see, here's my frustration in that. Okay, we call America the great melting pot, okay? And, and to a certain extent it is, because there's people from all over the world. Matter of fact, look at who comes across the border now. It's people from all over the world. But that's a whole other story, okay? But the point being, it's one of those natural things that people essentially become friends and move to areas and become, social networks with people who are like themselves, okay? Once again, in the St. Louis area, we have the Hill, okay? Who shows up on the Hill? Who's there on the Hill? Italian people, okay? You go to most major cities. Matter of fact, there's an area on Olive, there was some discontent went on Olive just east of 170 when they took out, several blocks to build the new Costco and a bunch of other places. That block of, not block, but probably about a good mile and a half from 170 all the way to like Hanley is sort of a melting pot with a lot of Korean, a lot of Chinese businesses. And you go back 20 or 30 years, it was almost all Jewish businesses. Matter of fact, that's where I used to go for the New York Bagel, owned by a Jewish guy. I love the bagels, and there was quite a bit of Jewish food along there, okay? But so once again, my point being is that why is it that we had segregation, which is gone, and that's a good thing, but yet people still segregate themselves. And let's be honest, the black people segregate themselves quite often. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I do know, but also, Brad, what you're expecting is you're being rational here, and you're saying that what applies to one group should not apply to another. And so I think it's just, of course it's not fair that you couldn't put a sign out that said white radio hosts gathering. And immediately, like, Channel 5 would be there and everybody else would be there, and it'd be a horribly racist thing. But you could say black journalists luncheon and it's fine. Because of course it's not fair, Brad. And we're supposed to buy into this idea that black people or Asian people, whatever. Now, I happen to think that if you're Asian and you want to only live around Asians and you want to just only hire Asian people, why not? But of course it doesn't apply to us because we're white, Brad. Those are just the rules of the game, and it's not fair, and it will never be fair. And also, by the way, remember that we're teaching kids through our public education system that America is racist, that black people should be able to have separate spaces, but white people shouldn't be able to. So we have an entire generation of folks that are not taught better than Brad.
I just don't see. The whole thing about this is that when you come to, if like let's say I sold the radio station, I got hired by a company, and they said to me, Brad, we're going to send you to Spain, okay? The first thing I would do, I would hire somebody to teach me how to speak Spanish, right? Don't you think? Don't you think that would be?
Yeah, you would, Brad. But you're not black, and you're not an angry young black person that says, no, that culture will assimilate to me. I'm not going to change who I am.
Well, I'll die being a naive guy, and that may be tomorrow at the rate I'm going. But I just see what bothers me about this is, and let's go back to the journalistic thing. They were like we shouldn't have invited you. Why not? He's running for president of the United States. Donald Trump, without a doubt, is the most known person in the world, not in the United States, not in the Northern Hemisphere, not in, English-speaking lands, the most known person in the world, okay? And you're going, well, we shouldn't have invited you. I mean, I don't understand that. I don't understand it. It just...
Well, they want to have it both ways, but also the woman from ABC, whoever she is, this is a big moment for her. She gets national attention. Nobody was on the radio on a Thursday morning talking about whatever black woman this is. Nobody was talking about her in St. Louis until now. And so this is her moment. She gets to say, and I told Donald Trump what was what. And so it's a win for her. And then think of all the other black female journalists that are angry that woman is getting attention and that woman is getting a national spotlight for asking questions. So they're angry about it. So they're going to say, he shouldn't have been on that stage in the first place. Okay.
Let me see if I can find it real quick here. No, I can't. Let me see next break. I'll see if I can find it. Because to me, it was just okay, that's not journalism. And see, the interesting thing about it is we run a promo on this station, and it's by a religious guy. I can't remember the guy's name. It's terrible. I'm terrible with names anymore. That's what happens when you get into your 80s like me, close to 90. Okay, and he says how you become a better person is you ask more questions, and the interesting part of this is. That's one of the things that if you ever take a sales course, one of the sales courses I took years ago, the guy stressed telling is not selling. If I'm going over to John's house and I'm selling him on a new driveway, I'm not going to walk into his living room and say, hey, John, we've got the best concrete. And matter of fact, let me tell you, we've got the best concrete guys. These guys are so good, they could do this in their sleep. And we got the best tools. And our concrete trucks are the best. Matter of fact, the beds of the concrete trucks are chrome plated. That's going to be really important for your driveway. Instead, the sales guy should walk into your living room and say, John, why exactly do you want a new driveway? And you're going to say, well, it's got a couple cracks, but the guy down the street's got that really cool stamped driveway. Oh, you mean what kind of stamping does he have? Well, it makes it look like little cobblestones. Oh, we can do that. What color would you like it? Get what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying, yeah.
And that's the point where instead of a good reporter, that's why Howard Stern is deemed to be, matter of fact, maybe in the old days, he's gotten so weird and so bizarre. I mean, there's a guy who's done the 180 from the guy who was against the man, and now he's the man. You know what I'm saying?
He has turned into Don Imus.
Right. But he would ask question after question after question after question. And the interesting thing was sometimes the questions would be like, hey, what's your favorite food? Hey, what was it like having sex with so-and-so? You know what I mean? That's exactly. That's what made him famous. He asked the questions. People go like, I can't believe he asked that, but I want to know the answer. What was it like?
In defense of this woman whose name is to be determined, she was never going to win with a question, because if she had said, Mr. Trump, you've been accused of being racist. You've been accused of being all these things. What do you have to say? If she had been that straightforward about it, people in the room would have said, why are you so soft on him? You need to ask him about fine people on both sides and other urban myths. This woman wasn't going to win regardless. But that's not an excuse for her question.
I get it.
No matter what she was going to do, Brad, people were going to be mad about it.
I get it, but what she's doing is she's essentially reinforcing the idea that as a black journalist, she has a chip on her shoulder. And once again,
but that's a fact, right? Who's surprised by that?
Well, but once again, journalists are supposed to be neutral. At least in my day, they were. I still tell the story about back in Dr. Camille Winter's class. He would have us write stories, and then he would just rip them apart. He would go, "Well,
eviscerate them."
Yeah, he would just say, "Well, look what you said this. That's because you live in Missouri." He was right.
So but real quick though, Brad, this goes back to we had a conversation 2 days ago about St. Louis public schools, and we had a conversation about Pine Lawn and Calverton Park and these other areas. Why do we expect a group of black journalists sitting together in a room to behave in a way that you would expect from traditional journalists? Like, don't you think your expectations are a little too high?
Okay, hold on a minute. Let me see if I can do this real quick. We made run long. And, once again, I'm not being prepared on this because I should have all this chopped up in a whole bit, but I believe I found it here. Let me see if I can just run this, if this is going to work. Hold on just a minute.
Get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said in the past. He said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before you picked him to be your running mate? And do you agree with him?
No, I know this.
Okay, that's not the right quote, but that's the same lady, so you get the idea.
Right, sure, I get it.
That she's essentially, making a statement. She's essentially, John put it better. You're always better at stuff like this. What she's doing?
Well, I would just say she's asking a leading question. She's giving a cross-examination. She'd be a great attorney. But to her credit, though, Brad, Donald Trump can answer those questions, and he can answer them in a funny way, and he can point out the fact that they're terrible questions. He's strong enough to take it. But it does, to your greater point, though, Brad, it underscores the fact that you're not going to go into a room like that and expect a group of black journalists to treat a white man like Donald Trump fairly.
Well, and once again, I think it shows that take the J off their name and just call it the National Association of Black, because to me they're not journalists. But once again, on a weekly basis, how many times does it come up that say, well, what's your background? What's your education background? Oh, I got 2 degrees in journalism. But they're both worthless. And I had a discussion with somebody the other day, and they said to me, well, if you decide you want to get out of radio business, you could get a job with your degrees. I go, where? What could I do? Once again, do you think there's a snowball's chance in hell that I could get hired at KWMU? First off, I'm an old white guy, okay? Guess what? And I don't have the political mindset that all the reporters over there have. If I applied there for the next 10 years, they wouldn't hire me, right?
Well, yeah, because they've already treated Don Marsh so well and Tim Eby so well, Brad. They already have those 2 slots filled. They appreciate not just racial and age diversity, but ideological diversity too. The better angle for you, Brad, is to take your God Squad money and fund your campaign for state senate, because you can do that.
John brings things full circle. It's full circle, John. He's really good at that. Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?